Without further ado, I would call to stage Carme Artigas, who is the Secretary of State of Digitalisation and AI. It's a pleasure to have you with us, knowing all the difficulties with the train schedules, etc. And we would like to ask you, having a bit of the insight that we have you here, you are not only an expert in the field, but also leading a number of dossiers in council currently under negotiation. How do you see these two topics, interoperability and AI, evolving in the future? And how can the EU build this up to lead on these two areas? Thank you, Carme.
Well, thank you very much. It is a pleasure that you have invited me to be present here at the SEMIC 2023 with this huge audience and these terrific panelists. So I would love to just probably reflect on these two concepts that are absolutely linked together. And I think discuss how interoperability and artificial intelligence can benefit each other through specific use cases and success stories. Over the last 3 years, we have been working on digital transformation that is human-centered and rights-oriented. Some of my colleagues in the panel were focusing on these ethical aspects and human-centric. And I think that's something very important because it's the way Europe is making things different. If you hear how US is regulating, they're always talking about regulating based on principles, regulating based on values, regulating based on standards. But we are claiming to regulate based on rights. What is the difference? When we're talking about rights, rights generate guarantees, and rights require accountability. And that's very important, especially when we're talking about technologies that have a direct impact in the society, such as artificial intelligence. So we started thinking about what are the rights we must agree we must preserve. And then we can choose many strategies. We can choose the European strategy to regulate, but others will do different things, because the important thing, not only at a European level, but also at international level, is to agree what are the rights we want to preserve for our societies in the digital space. So that's what we did already 3 years ago with Spain with the Charter of Digital Rights that later inspired the European Declaration on Principles and Values. And in particular, the Charter promotes the creation of digital environments to contribute to an effective right to access to public information, transparency, accountability, the involvement of people in actions of public administrations, and the respective areas of competency in accordance with our Constitution. So it is crucial that the public administration play an important role to guarantee and safeguard those digital rights, those rights of human beings and citizens in the digital space. But we were working on this not only since year 2020, we had already started working on this so many years ago. In particular, already in 2010, Spain approved a royal decree at the National Interoperability Framework that was implemented at that point of time through technical interoperability standards. That regulatory framework allows us to collaborate between all departments, between a state administration, but also with regional and local administrations, including universities. To solidify this commitment, since 2015, the law established that the public administration must be digital, secure, and interoperable by default. And now, today, with the introduction of AI, the public sector has a great opportunity to bring quality, efficiency, transparency, and inclusiveness to public services, but also to have better and more evidence-based policies and decision-making. So with that in mind, we established, and we already implemented since 2021, the Digitalisation Plan for Public Administration between our National Digital Agenda 2026. And in this agenda, there is an important pillar number 1, that foresees the creation, among other initiatives, of an app factory and a GovTech initiative for the development of public services through mobile apps. We have just mentioned this in the last panel. How can we leverage all the knowledge, all the, I would say, brilliant minds that we have in our countries for the public sector? Because that's not easy. We are competing against the private sector for talent. We need public servants that are good in big data, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, data management, data quality, and that's very complex. So I think we need to open up our capacities, not only to the things we can do ourselves, but also to the great community, the public sector, and entrepreneurs. So our objective is to create a community of open source developers to help provide citizens with a marketplace for government apps that we, of course, have validated in terms of security, data privacy, and cybersecurity. So one can imagine that in the creation of these apps, we need to ensure the interoperability so the citizen has a seamless experience. And this includes apps that also have AI-enabled software or that use data from different sources that can train the AI algorithms. So our goal is to have at least 50% of all digital public services available in these apps by the end of 2025. We have already put in place important apps that have been a terrific success. Mi Carpeta Ciudadana, my personal app, is being a great success on having one point of entry to digital services from state governmental services, but also from regional services. We also launched an app for students to find what is the best career to study in the university, other for government notifications, and the list goes and goes and goes. But I think that it is important to know that in order to have this ecosystem, we need to promote data openness from the administration. And that requires not only the traditional G2B or G2C environments, that's what the traditional having called the open data portals or the open data strategy. We need to encourage also B2B interoperability in terms of data between industries. That's what we're doing with European industrial data spaces promoted through Gaia-X, but also B2G transfers. We should also benefit from data, which is in the private sector, to improve our public policies. So that requires to develop data platforms and technological infrastructure that want data to be interoperable in all these environments. G2G, G2B, B2B, and B2G. So we're really moving from a change of paradigm. When we're talking about interoperability 20 years ago or 15 years ago, when we're talking about legacy, is because our background is I would say, application-centric infrastructure. So when we're talking about interoperability, we were talking about interoperability at an application level. But today we have a data-centric infrastructure. So that's what we have today. So when we talk about interoperability, we need to include interoperability at the data level, apart from the semantic level. So that's what has changed from an application-centric to data-centric. And that's the great opportunity of artificial intelligence. It must be fed by data environments that can be either concentrated through data lakes. We are building the public administration data lake, the national health data lake, but also in, I would say, distributed environments that will require federated machine learning when that data, for example, is resident in different entities or public bodies. So that are some of the challenges I think we must invest in and that we are facing. And beyond investing in the generation of new data sets and new data infrastructures, the efficient management and governance of data also must be ensured in the several initiatives that we are launching these days, requiring the use of artificial intelligence also in the public sector. So in particular, we have already launched from the General Secretariat of Digital Administration a pilot with the use of large language models such as ChatGPT to allow the creation of a search engine capable of providing information to citizens on the subsidies of European funds. Very interesting, very useful, because I always joke saying that the next big tech, the next unicorn in Europe will be a legal tech company, because we will require an AI tool to really navigate with all the regulation we are creating. So I think that's the next unicorn in Europe. And we're also collaborating with the private sector to create a chatbot for resolving queries on the law that regulates the public administration. And we're also working with our Ministry of Justice in a ChatGPT-like environment to facilitate and translate the legal vocabulary or the legal communications that the citizens receive into an easy, clear language that anybody can understand. But probably the most relevant initiative we have promoted with the use of AI has been the Digital Toolkit initiative, what we call in Spain Kit Digital. This is an initiative that is mobilizing 3 billion euros to provide with bonuses, with subsidies for SMEs to, with this bonus, they can contract software as a service or anything on the cloud to write it for the digitalization of SMBs. So it's 3 billion euros aimed to reach 800,000 SMEs. So that requires that all these 1 million companies have asked for a subsidy that requires 60 documents to ask for a 3,000 subsidy, for example. That took months. That took months. That took days and hours for the companies to gather those 60 documents and us to supervise all this documentation. Well, we implemented that through RPAs, robot process automation. And the result is that out of these 60 documents that they were required, now we are asking 0. We require no document at all because our robots are those who are navigating as agents, finding the information that we already have in our systems and that we can integrate in a more efficient way. So the result is that in less than 10 days, we are able to evaluate all the submissions, and we are having a capacity to develop this program at a scale that I think we have counted would require 6,000 civil servants working 24 hours during 6 months. So that's the equivalent of the efficiency we have gained with this process. So that's some examples of how AI, combined and interoperability and data can be for the benefit of the citizens and our efficiency as public administrations. And as you have mentioned now, during our presidency, we are working hard in several digital portfolios. First is the European regulation on interoperability, which will help us connect and provide truly European digital public services. This European interoperability, therefore, needs a legal framework of reference, efficient collaboration structures, but also agile mechanisms for its implementation. We already have reached an understanding, Council and Commission, to work on the dialogues that have begun on October the 10th, and we are committed to reaching an agreement during our presidency. But let me also mention that we are putting all the efforts in concluding the AI Act, the European Regulation on Artificial Intelligence, that will also affect those public services that use AI systems in high-risk domains, such as health services or access to education. So we are very confident to close this legislative file. Decisions are very hard because stakes are high. And I think that everybody is looking at us and expecting that we are successful. We have been working with this for the last 3 years. We are discussing important things that are, what are the limits of using biometric real-time recognition by public bodies in open spaces? Is that a forbidden use or not? We are discussing how the European governance on AI should be organized. We are thinking about introducing some transparency rules on generative AI, the need to identify that something has been generated by AI versus generated by a human being, and all these hot topics are now on the table. And I always say that we must be successful in this file because this is not only a legal framework, it's not only a legal standard, it's not only, I would say, a technical standard, it's a moral standard. We European citizens are telling the world what is going to be acceptable and not acceptable with AI, even though it's technically feasible. And I think that can create an important reflection, specifically on those values and on those rights. Just to conclude, I could say that Europe has now an opportunity to lead the development of a digital transformation in the public and the private sector that is human-centered and right-oriented. And in this quest, interoperability is not merely a matter of convenience, it is a fundamental building block for the cohesion, efficiency and resilience of the European project. By fostering seamless connections across borders, sectors and technology, interoperability bolsters innovation, enhances security and ensures that the EU's continued relevance on the global stage. It is a crucial tool in the realization of a more interconnected, prosperous and harmonious Europe, where people, businesses and governments can thrive together, transcending borders and barriers. And conversation like this help us advance in the right direction. Just a final word. The key word for interoperability is not technical. The key element for interoperability is trust. Thank you very much.